Ladies and gents, welcome back to another Engineers podcast. Today I'm joined by Austin Shepphard, Head of Engineering at Hypha, to talk about building AI-powered financial infrastructure, what it looks like to scale modern data systems, and also rethinking how companies operate with AI-native tooling. So we're going to dig into some engineering trade-offs, some product decisions, and also what it takes to build reliable systems in an AI-first world. So stay tuned. Austin, thanks for coming to join us.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Elliot. Appreciate the intro.
And some view, by the way.
Yes. We're very fortunate to have amazing offices here at the 54th floor in Midtown Manhattan, and that's a view of the Hudson River in New Jersey behind me. Yeah, it's definitely the best startup office I've ever worked in.
He had me thought that that's his apartment, by the way. Okay. Background into you as a kickoff, like help us understand who's Austin, and then walk us into Hypha, product, mission.
Yeah, absolutely. So studied computer science in college. My first job actually was at State Street Bank. Did not last very long in the big, rigid 40,000 employee bank environment. But I did join because I was interested in finance originally. And so it's interesting how we've come full circle, and now I'm back working in finance, but just from a different angle. But after State Street, I worked at a series of startups. So first, biotech company that I was at from around the 15 employee mark all the way up to about 300. Kind of interesting on that one. We were mining electronic health records, clinical data, all kinds of things that would be really helpful to have an LLM for, but doing this with, at the time, state-of-the-art technology, which in 2018 was now looking very rudimentary. Was there for several years. Then I joined Toast, where I was at a brand new ventures team that we built out a brand new catering product that scaled from around basically nothing to 15 million in revenue in a couple of years. Then I moved to New York, joined Hypha, which is another AI for finance startup that many people have heard of. Was there for about a year, and then joined Hypha. I've been here since the very beginning, and we've grown from about 2 employees all the way up to about 35, and just wrote all the early lines of code, and then was a pivotal part of scaling our team, and now acting more as head of engineering.
Love it. So you've joined in this AI era. Walk us through, as being employee engineer number 2, walk us through what that journey's been like to today, of writing the first lines of code to scaling up some of your systems to then having some enormous impact for some of your customers. Some journey, but walk us through what that's been like.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting time to be a software engineer in general, because when I first started last year, still we were writing most of our code manually. You'd maybe use ChatGPT here and there to write functions one-off and copy paste it back in your IDE, or use Cursor or whatever it is. But we didn't really have agents that were fully writing features end to end. So it's been on top of navigating all the normal startup challenges, it's been just a really interesting time to figure out what it actually even means to be a software engineer. What is a role of engineer in this changing world where we're not actually typing out code anymore. I think I navigated that first as an employee, actually writing the code, learning to adopt these tools, and then over time trying to figure out how do we build a framework at an organization level where we're using AI as effectively as possible to increase our momentum.
Love it. I want to come back to the leadership angle. I asked this question to someone on the Rebar podcast that I did around what it's like to be a leader in this AI-driven, AI-powered world. So let's pin that. I'll come back to it. Intro Hypha and the problems that you're solving for customers, businesses, users?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're an AI platform that's focused on commercial real estate. So we cater to all the players in commercial real estate, from lenders to asset owners to brokers. And our platform allows our customers to automate various document heavy workflows that they do day in, day out. So it can be everything from intaking financial statements and turning it into an offering memorandum if you're a broker, to taking in financial statements, appraisals, building details as a lender, forming an underwriting model, and then ultimately helping humans decide, is this a good deal for us to lend on or not? So that kind of thing.
We spoke about the rudimentary way, or you spoke about the rudimentary way, what you were doing in this biotech company in 2018.
Yeah.
What was it like pre-AI, working in the commercial real estate world, actually trying to build something without AI that looks like Hypha today?
Yeah, so I think finance is a very interesting space because in a lot of other industries, we've seen them be completely transformed by all these SaaS products that have come out. Like, certainly as software engineers, like, we're all using, like, everything's in the cloud, it's on GitHub, this and that, like project management and Linear and Jira and all this stuff. But finance, like, strangely enough, they've pretty much been on Excel since the 90s, and they're still on Microsoft Excel and Word. And so I thought a lot about, okay, like, why, like, what is kind of holding this industry back from, like, truly automating away their workflows. And a lot of it just comes down to how bespoke and custom every single deal folks work on are. There's certainly, like, a baseline structure that's standard to some degree, but when you're talking about, like, a loan agreement, like a loan, like, there's a loan agreement that governs the terms of that loan, and that's a contract. And like any contract, like, little nitpicking specific details and how it's worded actually change maybe even the formula you use to calculate certain things. And with so much variance deal to deal, it's very hard to build, like, a one size fits all software platform that can do everything that our customers need. However, I think AI, the true power of AI is that AI can generalize and it can handle these nuance on a one-off, like, deal-to-deal basis. So I really think that's the like, fundamental change that's allowing us to, like, modernize this industry and take it, like, 30 years forward in their technology journey.
Interesting. So Excel's almost become this infrastructural backbone to the finance industry that's very different to difficult to shift away from. Now we have AI here. Hopefully that's that infrastructure turning point that we're able to start leveraging.
Absolutely, yeah. And Excel, I mean, what's so powerful about it is customized. Like, you can start with a template, and then, like, a user can be like, oh, like, we're not truly modeling this correctly, let me add a specific column, or, like, there's an unusual circumstance here, or, like, this or that. And that's what has allowed Excel to stay so long in this industry. And hopefully with Hypha, with AI, we can move past that.
Love it. I want to come back to the head of engineering part. We're going to be talking about technical challenges you've been involved in building some of these systems, most likely from zero. But head of engineering in this AI native world, what's that like? Because I get the sense that it can be decision fatigue, lots of tools, technologies, ways of approaching things, and your job is to really empower people, immobilize people. So has that been a challenge?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the biggest challenge leading any engineering team nowadays is adapting to the change that AI is bringing to the industry. I think, like, in some ways, I feel like I have a bit of imposter syndrome because I am quite on the young side, and there's certainly, like, a lot more experienced folks in my position at similar companies. But I think what alleviates that a little bit is that actually everybody's rewriting the rules of being an engineer because of AI. And it's not like you can apply like what you did 4 years ago at Amazon to a startup now and expect it to be effective. Like the one constant is you have to adapt to new things that come out, because AI is changing so rapidly. And if you don't adapt, you're going to fall behind. And adapting means everything from changing how you hire, changing how you like test and instrument and observe your platform, changing how you do PR reviews, changing how you set up teams. Really, like you need to reassess your full stack of processes from end to end and see, is there a better way of doing each of these things with AI? And so you mentioned tooling, like there's an infinite amount of tooling out there. I think like one benefit we have still being a little bit early is we have the flexibility to try things. It's not like we have to go through some extremely heavy compliance process and like roll out a tool to like 300 engineers. We can have like a one-off team try something quickly, report back, present on it during a demo, see if we want to roll it out further. And that's how we've conducted a lot of our process improvements is we run a small test, we report back, and then we see, hey, do we want to scale this and formalize this org-wide?
Love it. That's good context. I look at it and you hit the nail on the head. The rules have changed, and I wouldn't say the rules are relatively unknown, but I think a lot of teams are still figuring out best practices, the way to structure how they work, structure internally, build things, etc. So game's changed, but the game's not changed too. But I can imagine there's a lot of decision fatigue on, are we doing the right things? Should we be doing this? How will this scale? Because some of it is relatively unknown at the point.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think like all you can really do is try and apply the scientific method, have a hypothesis, test it, and just be comfortable that you're going to make mistakes, you're going to get things wrong, but do things on a small scale and then like double down when they're working. And I think that's what's worked for us so far.
Love it. Talk to us a little bit about the product of Hypha, some of the use cases, and then move into how you've scaled that up from an engineering standpoint. So there's a couple of things there, but just really understanding the product now, use cases, and scaling that up from zero.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the similar to how like our day-to-day work has changed through AI, like AI is also changing as like an AI native product. I think the biggest challenge for any AI native product is you need to focus on building to where AI is going, not where AI is or has been. And it's very easy to say that, but it's very hard to get in reality, because I think even at some of the larger AI labs, they might like see a little bit further in the future than we do, but I don't know that they would be totally expecting what's happened today a year ago. And so I think that's something that we've not necessarily gotten right from the get-go, but have like adapted to over time. So what I mean by that is I think when we first started, you see like a lot of kind of similar products in a variety of document heavy spaces. So you have like your Harvey, Rogo, Hebbia, companies like that. Yep. They all have sort of a similar core set of tools that are built on top of AI. So like at a very basic level, to work with documents, you need to be able to extract data from documents with some level of accuracy and confidence. And then you need to be able to produce other downstream documents. So, creating PDFs, editing Word documents, creating Excel models. Like these are just like required fundamental things that you have to be able to do to function well in finance or like a legal space. I think for like when we first got started, we thought that was it. That was the product. Like we're going to do data extraction and we're going to do like producing documents from that data. And that's the product. The customer is going to log into the product and kind of configure, okay, for a lease, I want to extract these bits of data. And for a loan agreement, I want to extract these bits of data, and then configure how their document gets generated, like effectively write a skill that defines like, how do we go from this data to a full like offering memorandum or whatever it is. And I think in what we found out is actually, well, first of all, like the foundational AI models have gotten way, way better. And so now they're like the labs themselves are offering Excel plugins or offering Word plugins. So it's not enough of a moat to just provide these little utilities on top of the model. And then on top of that, actually producing a good configuration to do the correct data extraction and to do the correct document generation is non-trivial. So how we've pivoted is, before we were focused on these basic foundational utilities to be used across a variety of industries. Now we still have those, and it's still part of our IP, and there's still unique things we do in those areas that I think separate us from the other companies I mentioned. But we're starting to realize that our true value is actually like going deep on customer workflows and automating them end to end and in an opinionated, stable working way. So truly like thinking about, okay, if like Hypha is engineering and offering memo generation workflow, or Hypha's creating a underwriting model generation workflow, and understanding all the specific commercial real estate nuance that it takes to do that well at scale.
Interesting. So you're almost building this centralized platform that solves some of these different commercial real estate problems. That would you allow people to plug into those different systems and use different parts of those products, and you're almost like the nucleus?
Yeah, I think that's another like thing that's changed over time is that people expect your product to talk to other products, and so we're actually developing an API and an MCP and all these other things that I think for a while felt like we'll do that eventually, and now it's become clear like no, like when data gets into Hypha, like it needs to be accessible to users' own like local Claude cowork or whatever else it may be. But yeah, I really think of our platform almost as two layers, where you have this underlying layer I think of as primitives, where you have like your document to data, and then you have like document generation, and we also have a dashboarding feature where you can visualize any data that comes into Hypha. And these are all generic utilities. They work on data. They don't work on finance data necessarily. But then on top of that, like base platform layer, we're building these opinionated workflows that truly automate a customer workflow end to end.
Got you. So you've gone through this journey of really understanding where you can continue to provide more value to customers. What's that experience been like? Working inside a business, obviously you're ex-heavy, you might have seen how some of that's been done, but coming in, employee number two, and seeing that journey kind of change and understanding actually we need to move with how some of our customers want to actually work. What's that been like? Because I don't think that's talked about enough sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I think like this is like a standard thing for startups. I think it's kind of interesting, even looking at our own employees, like you can tell kind of which ones of them have worked at startups before, because they're totally calm. They're used to it. They're like, yeah, this is normal. Everything's fine. And then other employees are like a little stressed out, like, oh, it's not working out with this client, or like things aren't going as well as we hoped, and this and that. It's like, we're a year in, things are going to change. We're not going to get everything right. I think the key thing that you always need to optimize for is always talk to your customers. Always make sure every decision you make is grounded in just empirical feedback that you're getting from actual users. And just accept that you're going to pivot a little bit, and you don't necessarily need to plan out the full journey to your end state. You only really need to plan out the next step. And that next step is going to change over time as you learn more information.
Love it. Okay. Like that. Talk to us about some of these engineering challenges then that exist at Hypha. So they can range from building this foundational data layer through to customized workflows for clients. I imagine different sets of challenges that do marry up, but talk to us about what they look like and how you've gone about building them.
Yeah, so I think I think like across the board, one of the biggest challenges that you'll see almost in any AI startup is that, again, AI superpower is it generalizes and it can handle a wide array of different possible inputs and outputs. But with that power comes a lot of different inputs and a lot of different outputs and a lot of unknown unknowns where you don't necessarily have a full set of every single document a user might upload to your AI system. You don't know what questions users are going to ask. There's a lot of emergent behavior that just like happens naturally as people start using the product that you really just can't account for.
Yeah.
And so you're always trying to design systems that you think are going to generalize to the full problem space, but you never really know what that full problem space is in total detail. And I think that's just been very, very challenging to grapple with, again, across the industry. This is like, I think the biggest reason AI startups have challenges scaling as well. Like, I think like there's this common statistic that AI startups are getting to like 1 million ARR faster than any companies before in history. But then like a lot of them are stalling out. And it's because they hit this wall where the product demos really well along the happy path. But then when people try to use it in the real world, you're faced with this like death by 1,000 cuts where there's so many more input possibilities than you accounted for. And the app actually doesn't work 100% of the time. It works like 80% of the time, and 80% is not good enough.
Okay, that's a really interesting point. I hadn't heard that stat.
Really? Yeah. I don't know if it's still going around, but it was like a very popular thing I saw maybe about like a year ago when I was at Hypha more.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm totally with you by it's this continual evolvement of the model side. They keep improving, but customers, tools they might be using, workflows they adopt, and how they keep on scaling, there's just a throughput of these different challenges that you just really didn't expect.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like to give you a couple concrete examples, like so a core part of our platform is extracting data from documents. And we have this example of there was like a contract that said something like the rent is going to be $8,000 per month. And that was typed out in the contract. Somebody then crossed that out with blue pen and wrote in the margin actually $7,000 a month. And so our AI, like it's running off an OCR copy of the document. So it's just seeing like markdown text. The comment in the margins like is not visually in line with the text it's reading. So the AI says, okay, rent's 8,000. It looks correct by all means when you're looking at the markdown, but it's incorrect in reality. And so we end up having to add a vision layer that actually reviews the image of the page the data is coming from to verify that there's no like visual indicators that has changed, and this is the kind of thing that you really could never expect this would ever happen. I mean, we ingest, we have a title company we're working with, and title companies establish the ownership of a plot of land effectively. And they were uploading like land deed documents from the 1800s that I could barely even read. Like this is a scanned PDF of somebody writing in cursive with like a quill pen 200 years ago. I can barely read it as a human, and we're trying to extract data from it with AI. So these are the kind of like weird things that just come up and you just never expect it to happen.
Yeah, I bet when you walk through those doors, employee number 2, you just didn't account for that when thinking about building out your product.
Yeah, absolutely not.
You touched on a really important and interesting part that I'm sure other startups face, and it's this accuracy and reliability around using AI-powered tools, systems. You've given us a couple of examples. Have you got other examples that you could share that you ensure that you're obviously building the product with as much accuracy as you possibly can?
Yeah, I mean, accuracy is like a core tenet of ours. I mean, fundamentally, like in finance, people are making decisions based on the data we extract that could have like millions of dollars worth of implications. So there's like a spectrum of data extraction tools, and generally, if you pay more money, it'll be more accurate. And we're on the very expensive, very high accuracy end of the spectrum. That's really our niche. And so in some cases, like to extract a single data field, it might cost us like 25 cents or something like that using current state-of-the-art models. I think for us, like we apply like a pretty standard set of like sort of guardrails to ensure that accuracy. Like the main kind of table stakes that just about everybody will do is citations. So you need to, like the AI, if you just ask it for a number, it might make up a number, but it's much, much less likely to do that if it also needs to tell you, okay, this came from line 27 on page 38, and potentially even return a quote or reasoning or things like that. So that's just like kind of base standard practice. I think the other aspect of what we do is we set up our agents in a way where they're truly reading through these documents the way a human would. So if you think about a typical legal agreement, like legal agreements are littered with defined terms. So like terms that are in capital letters that are actually defined at the beginning of the document. And so you might see things like, you know, the borrower is defined to be XYZ LLC at this address. And so to really know what the borrower means, you need to refer to maybe page 2, even though the data you're looking at might be on page 47. And so our agent's able to actually read through this and trace back everything and make sure it truly understands the full set of context, including if there's any amendments at the end, which is another kind of edge case that happens with contracts where maybe the last page will be text that actually overrides clauses that were previously defined. And so we specifically have have eval sets for a lot of these scenarios and specifically prompt our AIs to do the more labor intensive, more token intensive way of reading through these documents with like full understanding rather than just like rote looking for, it explicitly saying things like the rent is $8,000.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's obviously a heavy involvement of AI here that's replacing some human elements that pre-AI contract reading would have been really standard. There would have been no other way that anyone else would have done this in your line of business and others. Where do you think on this spectrum of AI, human, like how far do you think it is gonna go, or it's gone so far in terms of document extraction through to building out customer workflows? Like where in that journey does AI play, the human play?
Yeah, so I mean, I think AI in many ways is going to function kind of similarly to how like factories changed like making stuff. Like back in the day, everything had to be made by an artisan. And so, if you had nails in, a chair, a human had to like nail in every single one of those nails. And then eventually, you have factories, and now a factory is doing parts of that work. You still have humans working in the factory. They're just maybe not like doing every single little tiny bit of work. Some of those pieces of work are automated away. And what pieces of work? Yeah, it depends on the factory. Depends on a lot of things. It depends on the economics of like, is it cost effective to build a machine to automate this part of the manufacturing process? I think it's going to work very, very similar with AI, where there might be certain jobs where, yeah, theoretically AI could do it, but maybe it's not token efficient, where it's actually cheaper to just have a human do it. There might be parts where for liability reasons, you want a human doing this because maybe like the whole reason you're paying a lawyer is because the lawyer in some way is putting their like stamp as a lawyer that this contract looks good. And so you need a human to still do that. But I think there's a lot of low leverage tasks throughout all kinds of white collar work that's going to get automated away by AI.
How are you thinking about the efficiency of costs, token spend? I think this year, a lot of companies have started to look at some of their P&Ls and gone, wow, like we've spent a lot of money on this. So I know it's quite a big topic for engineering teams, organizations. Like, how are you thinking? How are you rethinking about this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, for one, I think we're fortunate for this very specific timing we're in, because a lot of the subscription plans for things like Claude Code and Codex and ChatGPT are heavily subsidized. If you're like a heavy user, like you might pay like $100-$200 a month and get thousands of dollars a month worth of tokens from it. So without a doubt, like if you're able to use those plans, like there's a lot of value in doing it. Eventually those will go away, and above a certain scale, like they basically say you can't use this plan anymore, you need to switch to token billing. But like while that's still possible, I think like the ROI is incredibly high. I think beyond that, it gets a little tough. I think like part of the challenge is that there's really no guardrails around token usage. Like normally when you're paying for something, like when you're buying food at the grocery store, like you see the price tag every time you grab bread, you grab a banana. With Claude, like you can tell it to do something, and it'll run for 30 minutes and charge you $100, and you don't even know you've been charged $100 until you look at the billing later. And so if you look at the actual distribution of usage across our engineers, some engineers are using a few $100s a month worth of tokens. Some are using a few $1,000s a month worth of tokens. And it's not necessarily clear to me that the people using a few $1,000s worth of tokens are getting more value out of it or using Claude more effectively. I think there's just like a lot of waste in how folks use the AI models for development, because it's so opaque and hard to like even understanding the implications of your actions. But I think that's like, as OpenAI and Anthropic scale and probably push towards profitability, I would imagine they're going to try to fix that at their product layer as they become more efficient.
Yeah, I can imagine. So do you think an engineer walking into an organization, a startup at some point, is going to be given a token spend maybe on their headcount? I saw something like that on LinkedIn. As in, per engineer, a token spend. Could you negotiate that token spend? Just food for thought. But
yeah,
you make a good point of the different costs there. That over 12 months, that compounds.
It adds up. I actually think like a token spend quota could be a reasonable solution, because it solves that problem I said before. Like the problem is like there's no like accountability for the engineer, and there's no real measurement of the problem. So the moment you start like measuring it and say like, hey, if you run out of tokens, you run out of tokens, that's your budget, you need to manage it. Other engineers are managing fine. If you can't manage it, that's your problem. It's part of your job. I think that is going to fix a lot of the problem. And like I said, I really do think there's just a huge amount of waste in the system just because of this like really like human like measurement problem, more so than anything else.
Yeah, 100%. How has it influenced helping your team design some of the back-end systems? Because I think when it comes to systems thinking, people are relying heavily on AI to build out some of the scaffolding. And like you said, in the way in which factories work, you will have assistants, but you will Q&A things at the end. Sorry, Q&A things, QC things, quality control things at the end. So just help us understand your mindset internally around how you're using AI to really build out some of your systems.
Yeah, I mean, we use AI for literally everything. I mean, we don't manually write much code at all anymore. And then I think you brought up a really good point, which is designing systems. I think that's actually a very underrated usage of AI in general. Every human has unknown unknowns. We have a certain amount of experience and information we've gathered in our lifetime. Sometimes you get a lot of value out of just posing a problem to Claude or OpenAI and have it, propose a couple options. And maybe you didn't think of option 3, right? And you can end up with much, much better results very early on at the planning process, just by like kind of rubber ducking what you're working on with the AI model. And I think that's a very underrated thing that a lot of folks aren't maximizing. Because obviously, yeah, using it for code, everybody does that. It's easy, but using it to like improve your product decisions, your system design decisions, all that stuff, there's immensely high leverage around it if you use it effectively.
That's a good note for people listening. Decision-making capability.
Yeah, and then another thing I'd add is for me specifically, like I don't write code for our app anymore, but I do use Claude fairly heavily to help with more so either design things or product facing things. So one of the things I do a lot is I have it prototype ideas. Like if I have an idea for a new feature or a way to like redesign a certain area of the app to make it easier to use, sometimes it can be much easier to just ask Claude, hey, can you like mock up this idea in my head? Just use fake data. It doesn't matter. I'm not shipping the code, but just to give me a visual I can use to share with my team, or to even like see if it's feasible or makes sense visually, is immensely valuable. And I think that's, again, like one of the highest leverage ways to use AI.
Love it. Some good points there. Some good points. We were speaking earlier in the podcast around building into the future, and you need to be one step ahead of the game and building systems for the future. Where are some bets that you're placing over the next 12 months, whether it's product centric, whether it's system centric, but bets that you're placing internally around building? Help us understand what they are or what they might be.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think the thing every like company should ask themselves is, how do I avoid getting killed by Claude, next year? So that's like that's the driving force of a lot of what we're doing. And for us, I think what we've really settled on, like company wide, is this notion that, the AI labs, they're going to continue to build generic platform level utilities. So, and that's extended up stack. So they've started to build those Excel plugins and PowerPoint plugins and things like that. But are they ever going to go really deep and understand the specific workflow that a commercial real estate lender underwriter does to process a loan? Probably not. And they're probably not going to, automating that process entirely. It can't truly fully be done through AI. There's still a use case for regular software, deterministic code, and custom user experiences that help that person like monitor their work and understand the status of their portfolio and a bunch of other things. And so the more we can focus on like truly end-to-end solving an actual like niche use case, the less likely it is for us to get completely automated away. And for us, our goal over the next 12 months is we just want to accumulate as many of those workflows as possible. We want to go from right now where we can automate a couple workflows pretty well to like we can automate dozens to 100 workflows with like very high customer satisfaction.
Love it. Okay, so really it's that customer intimacy that is almost going to be your mo, away from the general platform utilities that some of these labs are offering. Because they're exploring, they're acquiring a vertical in finance maybe, or different sectors, but yours is really at like a base level of being with your customers at an intimate basis.
100%. Yeah. It works out of the box, no configuration, no tinkering, no, you need to like vibe code something and host it on a server and maintain it. Just like full end to end. This is a new way of doing things in the age of AI. That's our product.
Love it. And lastly, help us understand where some growth might be in terms of how you're hiring, who you're looking to bring into the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're hiring pretty much across the stack. So we have open roles for engineering managers, back-end focused agents, engineers, front-end engineers, full-stack engineers. I'd say the bulk of what we're hiring for is more like a full-stack generalist. So folks who have a lot of experience building products for customers. And I would say, like, I mean, a little bit more abstract, like in terms of what we're looking for. Again, our hiring practices have changed because of AI. Right now, what we're seeing is that in the past, maybe you'd have like 4, 5, 6 people working on one feature. Now with AI, like, that's too many people, because you end up everybody merging code over each other and getting confused, and you actually are not getting a higher speed of development from having 5 people on a feature than you would from having 1 or 2 in the age of AI. So what are the implications of this? Well, it means that 1 or 2 persons on a single feature, like, they need to have the ability to cope with very high scope, to cope with ambiguity, to see the feature through, not just like getting it shipped to production, but actually making sure it's used by customers and adopted, and all the little like paper cuts and issues are worked out, and to the point that customers are truly happy and relying on it. We have a much higher emphasis on more of soft skills, so things like communication, like the ability to think about products and understand like your product, the business, the customer's business, potentially even work with customers for certain roles. And that's all like relatively new. I think like in the past, it was the big focus was on like true technical depth, but a lot of that can be outsourced now. So what we're looking for is more, I'd almost describe it as people who would make good managers in the past.
Yeah.
Is like kind of the baseline that we want for all our engineers.
Interesting. I think you've given a really good account of what you're building, obviously, but some of the ways in which you make decisions, some of the ways in which you think then, and even earlier in the podcast, this ambiguity around customers isn't using a feature and you being year one, and there's an opportunity to redeem that customer, build something quite specific for a customer or whatever it might be. But I think that feeds into seemingly how you're looking to hire, how you're looking to bring people into the company, people that are very product customer centric, not necessarily less focused and discarding some of the technical capabilities. People obviously still need to stand up on that front.
Of course.
More on the softer side. So if you are listening and you're full stack, very product focused, of course, across some of those different verticals that Austin mentioned, you should go and check these guys and girls out. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can find the careers link on our website, hypha.co. We'd love to have you apply.
And there's a terrible office that they work in as well. So unfortunately, you might have to sit in there. No, I'm joking. You've been a star. I want to say a massive thanks for coming to join us, represent Hypha team, tell us about what you're building. Of course, good luck. But again, a massive thanks.
Thank you, Elliot. This has been a blast. I really appreciate you having me on your show.
No problems at all. And for people listening, likes, shares, subscribership, all that good stuff, do it. And it's bye for now.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this episode. Massively appreciate you listening and checking in with us. If you want to find out more about us and what we're doing, please check us out on social media. What we're trying to do at Enginears is build a community to drive knowledge sharing and experiences. On Twitter, we can be found Enginears.io. It's no underscore. We've also got a website, which is enginears.io. These links will all be posted in the description. Any feedback and comments are massively appreciated. We're always looking to improve on where we can. Thanks, guys.